This video is sponsored by Surfshark. More from them in a bit. So back in 2012, a 56-page document leaked from Microsoft, a document that many news organizations covered, but nobody knew for sure if it was legit. Now, eventually some lawyer firm requested that the document be taken down, to the degree that even now I can't find it using the Internet Archive. What this document contained was so sensitive that it needed to be scrubbed from the internet. However, a few pictures still remain. This was legit, a legit leak that showed everything Microsoft was going to do, and although some details were off and changed, at one point, this was the plan. The document was probably made around 2010, 2011, so a lot of focus was on the next generation Xbox 720. Yeah, I know that it's a joke, that's what people used to call the successor to the 360 back in the day, but that seems to be what Microsoft also called it. Now, sadly, since this document is so hard to come by, I basically had to rely on different articles covering the story. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because it's weird. But before we get into all of that, hi, I'm the Surfshark, here to tell you about me, Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN, that's virtual private network. And in the 21st century, it might as well be a necessity, because there's a lot of bad, spooky, dirty people out there looking to steal your information. And Surfshark gives you a way to fight back. You can hide your IP address. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi from all those, look at those people. You don't want them getting your stuff. Switch your location. Watch TV shows in other countries that you ain't from. It does all that and more. You ever get annoyed at the fact that these big companies are making a ton of money off of your data? Well, don't let them. Don't let them do it. Use the tools at your disposal. Use me. Use the Surfshark. Use the link in the description and enter the code WHIMZOO to get up to 6 months for free. It's important to remember the time frame when this original document would have leaked. At the time, it was well known that new consoles were releasing in 2013. The Wii U had already launched, wasn't being received very well by the public, and game studios were dismissing the hardware since it just wasn't that great. A lot of third parties were planning for a proper next generation. I remember at the time, a lot of parts of this leak were seen as either too far-fetched or not far-fetched enough. Here's what it said. So we have to assume that the document was made in either 2010 or 2011, way before it actually leaked in 2012, because the first thing that they talk about in the document is for 2011, a project called XTV, and we know this was going to be the start of the Xbox 360's transformation into an all-in-one entertainment box. And it actually was. Yeah, while we don't hear the term XTV a lot today, 2011 did mark the beginning of the 360's turn into a media machine rather than just a gaming machine. Before this point, yeah, you could play DVDs, maybe even HD DVDs if you had the add-on. And streaming on Netflix was supported, but 2011 is when you saw both Hulu and YouTube added. And Microsoft began investing in selling films and TV shows digitally on the Xbox platform itself. By today's standards, this might all sound very mundane, but trust me, at the time, it was a pretty big shift for console gaming. Next up, we have the first big change, the Xbox 360 One, releasing in 2012. This would be, I don't know exactly. I guess some say it would have been a less expensive revision of the Xbox 360, but a lot of websites seem to think that the 361 was actually the 360S. A console that launched in 2010, but that just doesn't make any sense to me. If anything, it could have been the Xbox 360E that released in 2013. But even this fact, the idea that the 361 was actually the 360E is really odd to me, because the 360E was always odd to me. It was a fairly significant revision of the Xbox 360, but released the same year as the Xbox One. It would have made a lot more sense if the original plan was to release it in 2012, which would have given it some time to be an actually relevant and useful product on the market. At the same time, we'd see a new XTV update that would allow the Xbox 360 to become a cable TV box. Now, for any younger viewers out there, these cable TV boxes were boxes that you could watch cable on. Since streaming wasn't that big yet, the most essential device in most living rooms was the DVR, a magical machine that could record live TV and play it back. allowing you to skip the ads. The interesting part is this would have required an HDMI import. You know, your Xbox has an HDMI out, but it needs a way to get that signal coming in. So I imagine the original plan was to release the Xbox 360 One as a device with an HDMI import as the killer feature, while also making it a slightly cheaper redesigned Xbox 360. We don't know whether this was a separate device than the 360E or whether this feature was just pulled from the 360E to make the Xbox One look more appealing. But either way, this leads us straight into the Xbox 720. Yeah, as I said, this was always a joke online. The next Xbox after the 360 would be the 720, because 360 plus 360, you get the point. But that joke eventually got taken pretty seriously, and Microsoft really probably did plan on calling the device this. Which the fact that they didn't, I think, is a huge missed opportunity. Microsoft is bad at names. They have always been bad at names. But the Xbox One was one of the most baffling branding decisions in gaming history. So the Xbox 360 means 360 degrees, as in a full circle, as in one, because it was intended to be more than a game console, but an all-in-one entertainment device. The Xbox One meant all-in-one entertainment device. The same thing. Alongside this, we see Kinect V2 mentioned, which is actually the name that they did use for Kinect 2. The goal of the 720 was to be 6 times more powerful than the original Xbox 360, which sounds impressive, but you gotta think the Xbox 360 was released in 2005. So that was actually going to be very easy to achieve. So the Xbox One we eventually got was better than this Xbox 720 they were planning. For example, originally the Xbox 720 prototype would have had 4 gigabytes of RAM, which was increased to 8 gigabytes of RAM. The Xbox 720 would have had a separate processor simply reserved for playing multimedia while also playing games. So you could have a TV, like you could put your shows in the bottom of your screen, in the corner of your screen while you're playing your games. And the actual original Xbox One did support this feature. Much of the console's hardware was designed around this functionality that was eventually removed just to give developers more processing power for games. The 720 would have had full backwards compatibility with the 360, something that the final device does kind of have. Like, the Xbox One can play most 360 games, but it's done through software rather than hardware. Microsoft's big focus on the 720, though, was not on gaming. And it definitely wasn't on hardware. They actually seem to expect that most users would end up streaming their games through the cloud to their consoles rather than playing locally. Now keep in mind, this was made in 2010 or 2011. This is such a terrible prediction by whoever made this at that time. Internet speeds outside of the West Coast, outside of the cities, would have absolutely not been able to handle this. Microsoft's strategy here seemed to have been cover all their bases. You know, provide just enough local hardware to play games, but don't make power the focus of the device. If smartphone gaming started to take off by 2013, if computers were getting even faster and faster, then well, maybe the cloud could offset the limited performance of the box. But the real killer feature here for the 720 was its price. Microsoft originally planned on releasing it for a measly $299. Coming off of the massively positive reception of the 360, Microsoft was winning domestically and globally. They were pretty close to putting Sony in a solid 3rd place in the console war. Releasing a console for $299 would have undercut anything Sony was planning and would have gotten the entire casual market on their side. Maybe. Possibly. Of course, the actual launch price of the Xbox One was $499 US, and the $399 PS4 did a lot better. So the 720 was also supposed to be a hub for all your devices. You're supposed to be able to cast your phone to it, play your mobile games on the TV, maybe, I guess, I don't know. Basically, Chromecast, AirPlay, all the stuff that's available on most smart TVs today, but it would have been done through Microsoft's box. Now, it's hard to tell with some of the grainy old images that were preserved, but it seems like Kinect V2 was originally designed to be built into the Xbox. Like, it was actually in the box. And then you would have 2 additional sensors attached to the sides of the TV that would give you more accuracy, I guess. I don't know. I think this is a terrible idea. Not everybody has a living room setup that accommodates a giant box sitting directly in front of their television. And especially at this time, I think a lot of people would have seen this as a weird Big Brother style attempt at Microsoft forcing you to put this box with a camera in front of you at all times. The real focus of the Xbox ecosystem seems to be building up to a device called Fortaleza. Fortaleza was a VR headset, a portable VR headset capable of playing Xbox games on the go using 4G. This wasn't just like an Oculus Quest. This was like a VR AR system. In fact, it was HoloLens, or a consumer-grade portable version of HoloLens that supported mobile data. The way it sounds is that it would primarily work with the Xbox 720 and Kinect V2, but could work independently of that as long as it connects back to the 720 using 4G. This detail is what made a lot of people assume it was a hoax, because VR was just kind of taken on. It was pretty early when this leaked. The mention of the Xbox 720 seemed like a dead giveaway that this was a fake, because beyond a joke reference and real steel, I don't think Microsoft ever officially recognized the term. The pricing of $299 seemed too good to be true, and having a portable VR AR headset by 2014, come on. Come on. To be fair, they did not do this. They did not manage to do this. HoloLens eventually would release, but it was nowhere near the price point that it would need to be to work with the Xbox. But at one point, this was all part of Microsoft's plans. I think what changed all of this, why Microsoft changed their trajectory, was because of smartphones and the Wii U. In 2010, when this document was made, the smartphone wasn't the smartphone that we know of today. It was a fancy gadget, a fancy new emerging technology that had a lot of use and potential, but it was not quite a necessity yet. It was showing a lot of growth in gaming, and there were some fears by analysts that it would take over the gaming market, but that probably was not Microsoft's biggest concern. Instead, the original Nintendo Wii, the winner of the 7th generation, had already won the console war, and by 2010 and 2011, the focus of both Sony and Microsoft was trying to capitalize on this new casual market, to play into the gimmicks. And this kind of makes sense for Microsoft if you think about it. They probably expected that the core gamer was moving to the PC space soon enough anyway, and Microsoft had absolute dominance on the operating system side of things, so they might as well have pushed the Xbox for the more casual crowd. But there was a miscalculation. Microsoft assumed that the casuals that popped up for the Wii and DS, and even the original Kinect, would continue on and buy next generation hardware. But they didn't. What probably changed the Xbox 720 into the Xbox One was the Wii U. To see the powerhouse that was Nintendo in the early 2010s, the company that had made the Wii, release a console with such terrible sales figures, well, that must have been horrifying for the entire industry, because the implication was that either consoles were dead or the casual market was leaving. Now, Sony clearly stayed on course, doubling down on making a platform for gamers first and foremost in their marketing. And Microsoft seemed to move a little bit away from some of the casual plans for the 720. They beefed up the Xbox One specs, and while they still initially required Kinect to be used, and that reveal was memed into oblivion, it could have been a lot worse. The most bizarre part about all of this in my mind is still Fortaleza. I have to assume Microsoft was just expecting technology to move faster than it really did, because there is no way that something like this could have happened by 2014. I remember seeing all of this when I was younger, seeing these leaks and hoping it was real, just so I could play, like, I don't know, Halo 5, whatever that would be, in VR. And once again, huge thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Make sure to use the link in the description and enter the code WHIMZOO to get up to 6 months for free.